Hello, my name is Jane Negridge, and I'm the one who writes all the weekly challenges for the Mindfulness Association. So if you follow our Facebook feed or Instagram, you'll see my blog posts going up every week. And last week, I wrote a blog post on straws. Well, not exactly about straws, but about how we might bring our mindfulness practice and our compassion practice into our daily lives through developing an outer practice. And this idea came to me from a discussion I had with my friend Christine, who is also a lead tutor for the Mindfulness Association and someone who I've taught with in the past, and has always been filled with inspiration anytime we sit down and have a cup of tea together. So as we were talking last week, after I wrote the blog post on developing an outer practice, we thought, wouldn't it be a great idea to sort of switch up the platform for this week's weekly challenge and turn it into a discussion, a video discussion between Christine and I, and seeing what comes of it. So I'd like to introduce my friend and colleague, Christine. Would you like to introduce yourself a little bit, Christine?
Yeah, sure. Hi. So my name is Christine Mackenzie Jansen, and well, actually, you've done a lot of the introducing for me. I teach mindfulness for the MA, and I guess the topic for today is around engaged mindfulness or outer practice. So
Christine, I know. How did this become really important to you? How did you do that slow turn towards bringing your practice off of the cushion and into the world? This is something that many of our participants ask us about, and some things that we cover in our level 2 mindfulness course, responding with compassion. We sort of look at this in compassion and action. So how was it that this level of engaged mindfulness came alive for you?
Well, I guess it really started with becoming a mother. I mean, what is going on in the world had always, of course, been alive and relevant for me on some level. But it was particularly having this tiny little, very precious being in my arms that I was responsible for, and my worry about what is going on in the world, and whether it was around climate change or social justice or just, how are we giving shape to our society, to our life together? And that in relation to this little being. What will the world be like when he's got the age of becoming a granddad? What will the life of his grandchildren be like? So these questions started to become more alive for me, and it actually reached a point of feeling quite a level of despair with that. And I try to practice with it, the Tonglen practice and the rain practice, but this level of worry and despair and powerlessness and overwhelm with these big topics, and also with my contribution to it. I'm a human being in this society, and what I eat and where I shop and how I get to my family in Holland, all these questions, it just really got up to here. Mm-hmm. And practicing, helped some, but it didn't feel like it really met the level of kind of the size it was for me. And I tried to talk with friends, and what I quite often found was that in the conversation there was more distance, either because they weren't sharing my level of despair in that moment, and perhaps what I was saying was triggering things for them, and just it ended in more distance and me feeling more isolated with these questions rather than that I was really able to connect. And I probably missed out on conversations that might have been really helpful, but just after so many difficult ones, I just started to kind of, close in about it a bit more. So then it came to a midnight desperate Google search. And I don't actually remember what I typed in, but what Google, blessed Google, came back with was the title of a book, which was Active Hope, How to Face the Mess We're In Without Going Crazy. And it was written by Joanna Macy and Chris Johnson. I knew of Joanna Macy as a grandmother and a lifetime environmental activist, and also a Tibetan Buddhist scholar. So I kind of rated her already, and without even reading any further, I ordered the book and I went to sleep.
And how did you sleep that night?
Probably interrupted because Finbar was very little, but at least I could sleep.
Yeah.
So I guess it was something around that sense of, oh, I'm not alone with this. And as the book came and I started reading, I really, I was so relieved that there were other people and even a method of relating to these two questions that have been really alive for me. One, how do I live with or kind of, face up to what is going on in the world, or the difficult aspects of that. Of course, there's many wonderful things too, but not so concerned about them. So how do I relate to what's difficult? And also, how can I play a meaningful role in this world, in this society? And how can I be more active and more living in a way that is aligned with my values? And so that was really my question. And the book actually was really helpful in it, at least as a beginning of what very much feels like a journey. And like these questions, they're not questions with answers that, oh, this is how you do it, and then that's it. They're really practice. They really are practice.
So more reflective questions.
Reflective questions, but also a living with moment to moment. I might read a new news article that sets off again a sense of, whoa, what's happening with climate change, and actually maybe it's worse than we thought. Or and then that despair can really kind of flare up again. Or I might discover a new way that I'm actually contributing to things being difficult, and how can I, without giving myself a hard time, but how can I see what's possible? How can I investigate it? How can I again and again look at this one wild and precious life? How can I meet it? How can I really be in it in a way that when my little boy grows up and he asks, so what were you doing in that time, Mum? When things were tricky, and when, that's on a world level, there's a climate act, and there's again and again, there's elections. What were you doing, Mum? I want to have a good answer to him.
Yeah. And you mentioned, discovering things that you may be doing that may be contributing to the problem that you didn't even know about. And this really resonates with me, because even in our discussion a few weeks ago, when you said, do you use straws? And I thought, no, I don't use straws. And then when I really thought about, actually I do use straws. And there's that level of panic that happens. Like, that's a really tiny thing. Imagine all the things that we do that can be contributing. How do you deal with that? What would your advice be for people who feel that overwhelm of, it's almost like this teeny tiny thing of using straws, causes so much problem. What is everything else? And then there is a propensity to just look away.
Yeah, absolutely.
Too much.
And it really can feel too much. And that's where I feel so grateful to Joanna Macy and all the work that she's done, because she's found this pathway which starts with actually resourcing ourselves so that we are more ready and more willing to turn towards. So her method really starts with gratitude and with looking at what we love in the world and what gives us joy, and where we appreciate and are alive. And from that space, she talks about this shift to honoring the pain for the world. And that was a really important one for me, because I was feeling this level of despair and worry as something that, like, I wish I could get rid of it. You know, this is making my life really difficult. And yet she was suggesting that this worry and this despair was actually a really healthy feedback loop. Like, if I've got a wound in my leg, I want to feel the pain, because that way I can, you know, take it serious and go to the doctor. If I have a wound but I don't feel it, then I might just continue walking and it might get worse. So that there's a healthiness to, you know, feeling affected by bad news and by difficult things, and also that it's really two sides of the same coin of the love for the world that we have. You know, if I'm really in touch with how much it means to me to be able to walk under ancient trees, then if I hear that same bit of wood that I love walking in, that is going to be cut down and is going to become a parking lot or whatever it is, or that it's going to become toilet roll, or, you know, then I really feel it, and then my concern about it will match my love. They're two sides of the same coin. So not seeing that worry as a bad thing really helps. And also, she's got a whole range of very helpful and skillful ways of turning towards, and again, they're not so dissimilar from what we've been doing in the mindfulness practices already. So the practice of Tonglen is an example, and there's actually there's many ways of gently turning towards and being with ourselves in moments of despair. So I guess the difference was seeing it in a bigger pathway, and starting with that gratitude and that love, and then moving into honoring the pain that is there, and not getting stuck there, because the next stage in what she calls this spiral of the work that reconnects, her name for this work, the next stage is seeing with new eyes. And it is about bigger perspective, a bigger sense of us, a larger sense of now, different sense of power, and actually a lot is possible with new eyes.
Yeah.
And again,
which is completely in line with our beginner's mind that we teach about in our mindfulness level 1 course.
Yes. And some of the practices that we do with the widening our circle of loving kindness, not just staying with our kind of nearest and dearest, but actually also very deliberately working with those who we might feel quite neutral about, or even those we find difficult. And the more we have a sense of all of us living on this planet, we have to kind of, you know, somehow make it work together. It's a very different feel than if we're getting too much in the us and them feeling. So again, the whole range of practices and ideas around that. And then again, it doesn't stop with that. Then the last stage is the going forth. Now what do I do? And I've been really wrestling with that question, because I guess I had ideas in my head of what someone who cares about these things does. You know, maybe they join Greenpeace and they go on this boat to the Arctic and they stop the drilling, or, you know, radical things. And here I am with a little boy and a husband and a house and you know, all those things. So what can I do?
Within your own sphere.
Within my own sphere, yeah. So there's a phrase that's been very inspirational to me around this, which is that where the place where my deep gladness and the world's deep hunger, where that meets, that's the place to go. So a sense of, what am I doing already? And how can I, you know, in that gladness of what I do already, how can I be more and more aligned to the world's deep hunger? And that sounds a bit big, and it's very much what Pema Chodron always says is, start where you are. But it's something about going through that process, and again, that's not a one-hit wonder, but again and again, aligning and starting where I am, and many little steps, and being being more and more kind to myself in that as well, because it's so easy to go into maybe a bit what you were describing around, gee, I'm using all these straws and that's just the beginning, and you know, shouldn't I know better, do something different? I really don't think it's about making ourselves feel bad, but seeing what is possible.
I know.
When I look with new and fresh eyes, kind eyes, what is possible?
Yeah. And maybe not beating yourself up if you have to have that to-go cup.
No, exactly. Exactly.
And I remember like years ago, actually, you know, maybe 12 years ago, meeting one of my favorite profs in Canada for a coffee on my summer break. And she requested, we were meeting for coffee, and she had her own, you know, ceramic cup that she brought. And that was so beyond me. And I was like, oh, what's that about? You know, and she was explaining then and telling me about, you know, why she made this choice to, you know, to really recycle and reuse and to, you know, not waste. And so this is why she brought her ceramic cup around. And it felt so foreign to me 12 to 15 years ago. But now, yeah, I bring my ceramic cup with me, you know, all over the place, and it feels easy. But back then it wouldn't have felt easy.
Yeah. And so,
you know?
I think it's really important that we don't start preaching to each other, and that it doesn't become this is what you have to do in order to be a good person, or a good kind of environmentally aware, or socially aware. You know, also on social levels, there's so many things going on where we might, with a bit more connecting, where action might be possible. So I think that sense of from what I love, how do I want to act?
Yeah.
From being present in my life, what do I notice? Where do I want to go? What do I want to choose? So it's much, in a sense, it is really attending to the inner practice, to kind of our own awareness, our kindness to ourselves, and then from there seeing now what choices are possible. Just like we've been doing in the mindfulness continuously, we have to see first. We have to, you know, notice, accept, this is how it is now, whether I like it or not. Let's not argue with reality. This is how it is. But now, how can I use my free choice? Where do I want to go?
And I really like that. And again, this is bringing to mind an experience I had a couple of years ago, where I had a girlfriend who was an activist and was always in all the, you know, the marches. And here in Ireland, the teachers were marching, you know, for with their unions, looking for, you know, better working conditions. And she was quite upset with me because I didn't go up to Dublin to march. She felt that I should have. But I remember sitting back and thinking, but I bake and bring it to the school, and I support all the reading programs that the teachers are putting in. So it is about working with what's in your sphere, and you're like, exactly what's in your heart to do and what feels right.
Yeah, and that's another thing that I felt really relieved about in Joanna Macy's teachings. She talks about making the shift from an industrial growth society to a life-sustaining society. And so that also means very much on a social level, you know, all the things that go together with that industrial mindset and that growth importance. And that this shift that she calls the great turning, that there's actually 3 really important and different ways that we can contribute, and that maybe they merge in some ways. But she mentions the holding actions, which your friend is an example of that, of marching or signing petitions online, or turning up, writing to your MP, or, you know, all these things, you know, with the fracking, chaining yourself to this, that, and the other. These holding action, court cases can be an example of that. Anything that kind of stops this destruction or stops things going down a bad path. But that's not the only ones. And if you were only to do that, you might actually burn out quite quickly, because you're so focused on what's difficult and what is marching ahead. possibly anyway. So then the second one is, what can we grow? Is looking at new ways of doing things. So whether it's solar power or changing your bank to an ethical bank, or finding new ways of justice, finding new ways of working together, finding new ways of doing agriculture, whether it's organic or biodynamic, that kind of thing. So looking for new ways that actually help this growth of the world that we would like to be part of. And then the last one is shifting consciousness.
Yeah.
And again, within the mindfulness, we've been doing a lot of that shifting consciousness in the, how can I be aware of myself and the other? How can I grow kindness, grow care, grow a caring, responding to self and other? So this shift in consciousness is a really important one too. And I just discarded that as, oh, well, that doesn't count. Only the outer actions and the marching and the stopping whatever bad thing is happening, that counts. But yeah, so seeing these three different ways gave me more of a feeling of there's a place for each of us, and and I can go from that deep gladness, meet what's there, that deep hunger, and there's a fit. I don't have to be something or someone I'm not.
I love that. So Christine, seeing as this is the weekly challenge, I'm wondering if you can provide our followers with a weekly challenge based on everything we've been talking about today. And maybe, say a bit more about your Engaged Mindfulness course that's going to be happening in Samueling at the end of January.
Sure. So I thought for a challenge around this topic, kind of looking at these two sides of our love and concern for the world. So where we meet things that we love, how about really taking it in? Like Rick Hanson's taking in the good practice, really opening the windows of our heart to whether it's the sunshine or the bird song or the first breath, fresh air in the morning, whatever it is, really allowing that to come in and lingering with that a little bit. And then the other side of that coin, where we encounter worry or difficulty, where we see things that, that give a reaction, rather than sort of turning away and staying in our own little life zone, let's just at least really give space to those feelings. And Kristen Neff's self-compassion break is such a wonderful way of doing that, by acknowledging that these feelings, that they are a real difficulty, that they are a moment of suffering, if you like to use that word. So whether it's seeing a homeless person on the street, or seeing rubbish lying around, or anything on the news, just, plenty of fuel there for despair and overwhelm and worry, really acknowledging it and then sensing into that feeling of how these concerns and how difficulty is part of everyone's life. We're not alone with that. And from there, now how can I be kind to myself? How can I care for myself? And perhaps how can I care for myself and the world? Just as an open question, and noticing what comes up.
Lovely.
Does that sound like a good challenge?
That sounds like a fantastic challenge.
Okay.
Yeah. And so tell us a bit about your course.
Yeah, I'm really excited that it's finally happening. When I had that midnight search and that moment of despair, it was actually several years later. I mean, Finnmar's is 4 now. It took many years before I felt ready to meet other people on this journey and to explore that together. And I'm really excited to work together with Faye Adams on this one, and seeing how we can use that spiral of the work that reconnects, kind of use that form to see, where do you want to go? What's important for you, and what do we encounter on the way? And to look at all these 4 topics, these 4 stages in the spiral, really through a mindfulness lens. And so this weekend will encompass many of the practices that we're already familiar with, but we'll just kind of tweak them a bit. And also, Faye has been really inspired by Reggie Ray and his practices of connecting with the earth in a deeper way. So using the grounding stage as a way of connecting with the vastness and the solidity and the vibrancy and the resilience of the earth herself.
Lovely.
So yeah, we're wanting to come to it from these two different inspirations. There's other elements to it as well, but that's the basic idea, and seeing what that brings. Seeing, just like we do in mindfulness, in the practices that we have been doing, it's not us as tutors telling you how you should relate to yourself. In the same way, it's not us telling you how you should relate to the world or what you should be doing. It's just exploring these questions together. And I'm really looking forward to it and very curious to see what it will bring.
Fantastic. And will you do a live teaching for the membership for us this month?
Sure. Yeah, that'd be nice.
Great. So thank you so much for joining us for this weekly video blog post. I look forward to watch this space, everybody. We're going to invite Christine in. I think that the next live teaching is supposed to be on November 30th.
Yes.
And at 7 p.m. So make sure for all members, this is one of the treats of the membership. So log on and join in, and you'll receive a wonderful teaching from Christine. Okay, so thanks, Christine.
Thank you, Jane. Lovely to talk with you.
See you in a few weeks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.